Why, hi there, it's me, it's Uncle Ron. And today, as the cat walks around and is going to ruin the shot, I'm sure, don't. You going to get down? Good girl. Today, we're going to talk about why I play Strat-o-Matic PC Pro Basketball. Now, I think of the four major sports, basketball is the toughest to get right on the tabletop or on the computer because the game is broken down into so many segments. It's 24-second shot clock. Even in today's offenses, you're going to have about 90 to 95 shots per team or shot attempts per team. That doesn't include turnovers, blocks, and fouls. So on a minimum, even if you were to play the Boston Celtics and Golden State Warriors from this year's final, you have over, like I said, roughly close to 200 individual actions you have to take and get out of their actual shots, rebounds, fouls, turnovers. You're breaking any decent basketball game down to 6-second segments. Now, baseball, with one at-bat pretty much resolving one play, that is, let's say, 60 to 65 for the game. Football, if you look at the 63, 64 plays run per game, maybe add 5 penalties, maybe 140 at most individual different actions per game on a play-by-play basis. Hockey really depends on how your clock is slotted, I suppose. Strat-o-Matic hockey, which I might address at some other point, that is in 35-second segments, 35 cards per period. That's 105 fast action card game. There may be around 120, 130 different things you can do with that. Basketball takes the longest to play, in my opinion, of the big four, because like I said, each thing is down to a 6-second segment. There are plenty of good basketball games out there. This is not going to be, I like this one, don't play anything else type video. But I think it comes down to how much decision making do you want to do for your gaming time. There are quicker play games such as regular season basketball and I guess highlight maker basketball, which you can break down into 3-minute segments. For regular season basketball, you get stats for players for both teams in 3-minute segments. Action PC, of course, is really a good basketball game. It gives you some visuals to go along through, does in-game injuries really well. Of course, there is TMG basketball, which is a hybrid between PDFs, which you can print, and a computer program. There's Above the Rim, which is my favorite freebie basketball game. Basically it's a Status Pro clone. Oh yeah, there's Status Pro. That you read read the results of the card and record them, and then determine whether or not there was what goes on during the game. So to make you feel active, what for me puts Strat-o-Matic above the rest, and I play the PC version obviously because cards and dice, as you know, is not the easiest thing in the world. Is that I can play in the style that I want to play in. Now, what does it exactly mean? Well, first of all, I shut off fatigue. I try to read the cards before we go into, or if I have a question, so the game tells me how much rest over the course of 48 minutes a player should get. So if there's a player that should be missing a quarter, I really don't want him to play more than 9 minutes a quarter, and I can control that without anything artificial added to change the results of the cards. Let's say Wilt Chamberlain, who doesn't miss any time, he sits there the entire game. So I can control that. I usually coach both teams, and because I consider Strat to be, for me, a pure card and dice game, I manage both teams, and I find it fun because I really don't know that much about the history of pro basketball. Obviously, growing up in New England, being a Celtics fan, quite a bit about that, especially as a kid, because their playoff games were on TV for those of us who even did have cable back then. But that would be about it. So those players I know, but to go through and just play everyone a couple times on the opposition, you get to know them. It's amazing the talent that's in there. And so you get to see it, you get to feel it, and you get to coach it. And again, I don't want to be able to sit there and direct every pass of a game or be told too much in advance of, look, if you go to shooter A has the best chance of making the basket. To me, that kind of gives it all away. But again, a basketball coach really doesn't do that much on the side, except for during timeouts. He can kind of say, get Bird more shots, or make sure that Curry's, if Curry's not going to be open, get it to Draymond Green, or what have you. I mean, he's not out there directing play by play like you do in football, or what you do in baseball when you make the decisions to make subs or who you want to bat and all that. Basketball is a big flow game. It just kind of goes and ebbs, and you have your good points and your bad points, and how you manage all that is how successful you're going to be. But what Strat-o-Matic does that I like above everything else is that when it comes time for the player to take a shot, or to make a pass to set up a shot, you can, for the most part, control what type of shot the player takes. Strat basketball cards are rated in 4-shot columns: outside shots, penetration shots, inside shots, and the fast break. There's also a 3-point rating, which if you want to take those, it'll tell you that. Plus, the game gives you all the information about what percentage of shots players take. It also tells you how successful you're going to be. But if you have a player that maybe shot 25% of his shots from outside, penetrated on 50%, and maybe the other 20% would be a mix between 3-pointers and inside shots, from playing the game on the computer how your shooter should react. And good, bad, or indifferent, it kind of gives you that feel. For me, playing cards and dice, I want the game to play out in my head. I want to feel like my decisions matter at the end of the game. Now, there are things, of course, that are out of my control. I can't control fouls. If my star player has 4 fouls in the first half, he has to sit in order not to foul out. But again, the challenge of that is coaching around when the bigger players get into trouble and trying to be successful. It's a mental exercise, as we've talked about on the show and others, putting the puzzle together, fixing the puzzle, all those sort of things. When it goes great. When not, look, you can't really give up. If you're taking a good team, you always have the chance to win. You're not going to win all the time. The other thing that I think Strat-o-Matic does better than some of the other games I play is how it handles defense. It's all done on the dice rolls. The shot results can come on the player's card, because that's how Strat is usually driven for all their games. The shot could come from the team's defensive card, again, outside, perimeter, inside, fast break, and you can also do sag or normal on outside shots. So that's there. Or individual players have defensive columns, and so it could come if you're trying to post up against Larry Bird, or Kevin McHale, or Steph Curry, or Shaq, could directly determine, if you roll a black dice of an X along with the roll, what that is. I mean, when you're playing against someone like Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain, it's huge because they can block a lot of shots and they get a lot of rebounds. You can control in the game what you do with rebound shots. If you get an offensive rebound, do you want to pass it back up, or do you want to take the immediate shot and go from there? And so you can do that, and it's an open shot. So shooters can be open or they can be covered. And so those results are also on the cards. I think it just gives it a lot of depth. And for me, because card and dice games really is theater of the mind, I can picture that game as I go. It's not a lot of work. Your computer obviously reads the fast action card, which is broken up into 6-second segments, and then you go from there. It handles all the math for you, and you just kind of figure out what you want to do from that point. I have all the teams that I play against set to be fast break offense, whether they were fast break offense or not. I have an internal system in my head of when a team should fast break and when they shouldn't fast break to try to get the advantage. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's the whole fun of playing these games, is you just never know. But again, because I'm the one writing the story. I can see that story play out in my head, hear the announcers in my ear, get frustrated when players with open shots choose to pass, because on the strat cards it's not automatically a shot. If you see an R in a column in the Strat-o-Matic, that's a replay. That means that the player refused it or didn't feel comfortable in taking the shot, and that gets rather frustrating because they're open. You want the player to take the shot. They have the ball for a reason. So there's, again, a whole variety of different decisions to make. Sometimes it's what player is going to take the shot, what type of shot they're going to take, and seeing that the result either comes off the player card, the team's defensive card, or the individual defender's card gives that an element. It's all written out for you, so you know where the results come from. So when Kevin McHale, who I'm playing in the 85-86 Celtics, his complete defensive card inside is all blocks. To the 12, he's going to block. If you roll an X and a number on Kevin McHale and he's guarding your player, that's a block. And that's it, so you can see it develop in your head. And when we see games develop the way in our head, regardless of the sport, it's going to be a lot more entertaining than trying to figure out, well, how'd you get that result? Again, I know that Action PC does a very good job on the chalkboard explaining how it does, and you can see the results play in front of you. And again, this is not a knock on another game, but I have made Strat-o-Matic my own game by, again, A, shutting off the fatigue, B, coaching both teams, C, being fair for both teams, and D, letting the chips fall where they may. The last game I played was a week before Christmas '85 between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Celtics are trying to go 40-1 at home, as it did in real life, and remember, they ran the table that year. They almost went a full year without losing at home. I beat the Portland Trailblazers, which was the one real-life game they lost. I thought I could beat the Dallas Mavericks, which was game time a couple weeks later. And no, Dallas hung in there with Rolando Blackman, and Sam Perkins couldn't buy a shot. I think he went 0 for 13 from the floor. And I lost. And I didn't feel bad afterwards because it was a heck of a ball game. It was an entertaining ball game. Remember, you're playing for an audience of one. Yourself. Sometimes we share these things, but when you sit down either with the PC version or cards and dice version of the game, you're playing for an audience of yourself. Are you going to be able to entertain yourself for that, hour and a half on the tabletop, or maybe 35, 40 minutes on the computer? Are you going to get, visualize that game enough in your head to get some enjoyment out of it? And yes, for me, that is there. It is a pure card and dice experience. I have none of the advanced rules turned on. Cards and dice don't get tired, but it's my job as the coach of both teams to make sure that players go in and out when they should, and that everyone gets their minutes. And for me, that's part of the fun, and Strat-o-Matic lets me do that. And because when I take a shot, you don't know from the start of it whether it's going to come off of the shooter's card. Sometimes you don't want it to come off the shooter's card. If there's a whole lot of blanks or a whole lot of R's, that's no. Oh my God, like imagine someone like Greg Kite having to take a shot, or TR Dunn, or someone that, oh my God, I can't believe you're forced to take the shot. You're just kind of holding your breath and you can see it, and maybe you can get to the foul line or something like that, or on the end of the 24-second clock, you don't want to see that R pop up. Please, you've got to take the shot, or the defensive thing, and at least, look, it's a rebound. You might get a rebound back. It just, again, for me, gives pretty much everything I would ask for in a basketball game. It paints a word picture in my head just by being able to read the cards. Now, every game has its faults, and if you play one game too much, the game faults are going to get, readily apparent. And sometimes the same things just kind of happen over and over and over again, which is why it's always good to change things up. And also, there are lots of good, I haven't even talked about PC Replay Basketball. There are lots of very good basketball games out there that offer a variety of different seasons. But the era I'm most interested in, which is the Bird, Magic, Jordan era, all those seasons are there. I bought 61, 62. I think that's a fun year to at least play some games off. I mean, Chamberlain's card is an absolute beast, and he's going to pretty much snag every rebound that's available to him. It's kind of hard to keep him under 50 points a game. But that's just why I play the game, because for me, it ticks all the boxes. It challenges my brain, it keeps me engaged, it's fun to play, and the results are plausible. I prefer to use plausible than realistic because we all have our different idiosyncrasies of how we want to coach. And the game situation kind of changes how you handle the team. So I can have as much control over that, and Strat-o-Matic will give you as little control of that. If you just want to, everything else for me is auto-simmed in there. I just coach the Celtics and who they're playing in their games, or in the 61-62 season, whatever games I choose to play. The computer handles the rest. It also tells me how much players are used or not used, and so if they are forced to sit because they didn't play that many games, I can choose to follow that. I can choose to ignore it. For me, it's just a fun experience. It takes a game that, again, is difficult to play on the tabletop because of so many individual actions and makes it into one smooth thing. And with a computer, yes, I know it's Strat. I have gotten my money's worth and a heck of a lot more out of it, and it will probably be my primary basketball game I play until I'm too feeble to play basketball games or have the attention to do that. Again, there are plenty of great games out there, varying from just a final score to put the stats puzzle together to replay. I think and Action PC are also right up there as far as quality of games. But for me, Strat hits the sweet spot. It gives me the experience that I want. I'm able to coach as much as I want and be a spectator as much as I want without it kind of interfering with each other. I feel like, and for me, if I do any more of these type of videos, the common refrain is going to be, I feel like I have enough of decision-making power to feel like that I've influenced the game, whether a win, lose, or draw. And for me, that's important. All right, so that's why I play Strat-o-Matic Basketball. Love to hear what you have to say in the comments. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.